So, hello to everybody from Face Buddha, and very nice to share the morning with you and wish you well for the new year. So, today we're going to talk about anxiety. So, I'm really nervous and tense because I have to give a talk and I can't see you. I don't know who I'm talking to. And what am I going to say? And what are you going to think of me? And oh no, how can I go on with this? I'm just so anxious. Okay, so do you get that way sometimes? Yeah. So when I think about anxiety, to me, it's related to a couple of other mental factors. One is worry, and another one is fear. And when I try and think about which one comes first and how they interrelate, my first idea, and you may have other ideas, is that first we have anxiety, okay? And then we elaborate on that and it becomes worry. And finally, we blow it up even more, it becomes fear. Okay. But what do anxiety, worry, and fear, what do the three of them have in common? We are making up stories. We are taking a situation and elaborating on it, projecting on it, mind reading, thinking we know other people's motivations, thinking we know what they're going to do, thinking we know the future. Yeah. And we're so sure that our ideas about these things are correct that then we are reacting to our ideas. So we're not reacting to the actual situation. Because you could be sitting here, okay? So we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, okay? People are losing their jobs, people are going to the hospital, all sorts of things are happening. Okay, so you're sitting in your house or your flat, wherever you live, yeah? It's peaceful, it's quiet, you're safe. But then you start thinking, oh, there's a pandemic and there's a new variant going around. Yeah, first we had ordinary COVID, then we had Delta, now we have Omicron. What's going to be next? And all these are spreading so quickly. And the vaccine works, but it isn't 100%. And I have my vaccine and I have a booster and I wear a mask and I don't go outside. But uh, 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 I don't know. I mean, I could still get it. And if I get it, oh no, then I'm going to go to the hospital. I'll probably die. Then my whole family, what's going to happen to my family? My kids won't have a parent. My parents won't have me to take care of them. My brothers and sisters won't have me to support them. It's going to be terrible. Oh, what if this happens? Oh, okay. So remember, you're sitting in your house. It's calm. It's peaceful. Your mind starts inventing a future that you don't know if it's going to happen or not, but that doesn't matter. We're storytellers. So we make up a story, and of course it is a horror story. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, we don't get anxious about good stories we make up. So it's a horror story. And who's the star of the horror story? Yo. It's all about yo. And this horrible thing is going to happen. I'm sure. Okay. And your mind, where's your mind? Yeah. Your body's sitting here in your home. The sun's shining. It's peaceful. You're feeling well. Your family's well. But your mind creates an alternative reality and gets anxious about it. Do you see your tendency to do that? Yeah. Then, so we meditate on the anxiety for a while. Yeah. Except meditate actually means you familiarize yourself with a virtuous state of mind. In this case, we're familiarizing ourselves with a non-virtuous state of mind, because this horrible thing is going to happen. And you familiarize yourself with this whole scenario and you amplify it, now, so that now I'm not just anxious that it'll happen, but I really am seriously worried. And then I start imagining what's going to happen to my kids. Before with anxiety, it was just they won't have a parent. But now, my kids, who's going to take care of them? They're going to be hungry. Oh no, they're going to wind up on the street. And my parents, if I'm not there to take care of them, my brothers and sisters won't do it. My parents, they'll get sick, they'll die early, or they'll be on the streets together with my children. And everything is going to go wrong. And I'm so worried because I love these people. I want them to be happy. I don't want them to suffer. But I'm so worried about what's going to happen to them. Okay? So you started out with the anxiety. You built upon it with the worry. Then you keep ruminating. Okay? You ruminate. You think about this again and again. And then now you are in total fear and hysteria. Yeah. But you're still sitting in your house. It's peaceful. It's calm. But now, I'm just visualizing my kids out on the street and my parents dead. And I'm so afraid this is going to happen, and it's all because I got COVID and the day after I got COVID, I died. Most people, they're in the hospital for a while and they get therapies and things like that. But me, no, I'm going to die the very next day. So nobody has any time to plan and make arrangements. And I'm terrified. Oh, okay. So we get ourselves all worked up about all of this. Now, let's go back to the anxiety. What is getting us worked up? Okay, what are the facts of the situation? Yeah, objective facts. There's a virus. That's the objective fact. There's a virus. Okay, what do we add on to that objective fact? I'm going to get it for sure. Okay, do we know we're going to get it? No, but that doesn't matter. We build up the scene. I'm going to get it. And of course, I'm going to die, the very next day. And we visualize ourselves there in the hospital. We're dead. And then we visualize the kids. We visualize our parents. Yeah. Everybody's totally, they don't know what to do. Their worlds are falling apart. Yeah, my kids are there sobbing. Yeah. None of this is happening. Your kids right now are in their bedroom playing. That doesn't matter. You're visualizing them sobbing because their parents are dead. You know? They're sobbing. Yeah. Your parents are there. Mind you, right now, they're fine. They're watching TV at home. But you're visualizing them, yeah, frantic, because nobody's going to take care of them. And therefore, they're going to be wind up in the hospital, or they'll wind up in an old age facility where they're neglected and they're going to die early. And all of this is going to happen. Okay? So, do you see, the whole thing is in your own mind? Yeah. It is not occurring now. Is it? It is not occurring now. But our mind dreams up this whole horror story, yeah, in which we're reading other people's minds, we know their motivations, we somehow know the future, and of course it's going to be horrible. Okay, and so we build this whole thing up. And then we get ourselves into such a bag of nerves, and we're so frantic that even if we got sick, we wouldn't even know how to take care of ourselves because our minds are too involved in this hysterical story. Okay? So as soon as we let our mind go and start doing this creative writing that it does of the horror story starring me, we no longer have any mental space to consider anything else happening. And we no longer have any mental space to think about, what could happen should that thing happen. Okay. There's an expression in English, I don't know if you have it in Spanish, of we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But here, when we get anxious, we've crossed the bridge before, not only before we've come to it, but before the bridge is even built. Okay? So we're so much into fabricating the future that is based on nothing more, basically, than our own self-centeredness. Because remember, all of our anxiety, who's the star of the anxiety? Yo! When we're anxious, we know we exist. I think a lot of the buzz we get out of being anxious is that we are proving to ourselves that we actually exist. There's a real inherently existent me who's the most important one in the world. And I know that because my reality is crashing all around me. But I exist, even though it's a horrible existence. Okay? So this is all an ego-created trip. Yeah, that makes us miserable. That makes us totally miserable. But what's really weird about the anxiety trip is we're afraid that if we aren't anxious, then we won't be prepared if something happens. So anxiety, we say to ourselves, is our way of preparing for a future that may happen. But it's not sure that future is going to happen. And second of all, if we're anxious, we are totally unprepared to handle the future because we're too involved in our anxiety. Okay? Now, this makes sense, right? You're sitting there nodding your head. Yes, this makes perfect sense. What are you going to do? Next time your mind starts creating a story, are you going to remember this talk and say, oh, I'm just projecting, I'm just inventing, the anxiety is created by my own mind? Are you going to remember that? Probably not. Why not? Because we are so habituated with making ourselves anxious and the buzz we get from it. Yeah, the feeling that I exist, that I know the future. Yeah. So then something happens, we're totally unprepared for it. And we can't think clearly when it happens because we're still so anxious about it. Okay? So how do we deal with this anxiety? Yeah, it's really a pain in the neck, isn't it? Yeah, it's not to our advantage. Okay, so first of all, we have to use some reasoning and logic here. Okay, first of all, if we aren't anxious, does that mean that we will be unprepared for this horrible future? Is that true? That if you aren't anxious, you will be unprepared to handle it? No, that's not true. Yeah. In fact, if you aren't anxious, you will be better prepared to handle it. Okay. So we have to, first of all, we have to start picking apart this whole anxiety thing that we develop. Yeah. So first of all, the reason we give ourselves for why it's important to be anxious doesn't hold water. It isn't a good reason. Okay. Here's another reason why we get anxious is my anxiety shows that I care. Yeah. If I'm not anxious, then I don't care about other people. Actually, is that true? That if you aren't anxious, you don't care? I don't think that one's true either. Okay. I grew up with an anxious mother. Yeah. Did that help me growing up? No, it drove me nuts. Okay. Because my mother was so afraid, especially when I was a teenager and I started going out with my friends. I had to be home at this exact time. And if I wasn't home at that time, she would be, I knew because she told me, that she would call the police immediately because her daughter had been kidnapped or her daughter had been in a fatal car accident. And those were the only two alternatives for why I wasn't home exactly on the stroke of midnight or whatever it was. Okay. And so my mom thought that's what she should do as to show her love towards her child. Like I said, this was not a loving situation for me. Yeah, it was a nerve-wracking situation for me because I'm having a good conversation with my friends and I keep on having to look at the clock because I know if I'm going to be late, I better call my mother at least 1 minute before, actually 5 minutes before the cutoff time. Yeah. So I couldn't, it was hard to just relax being with my friends because, It was like my mother's anxiety got transferred to me, and then I had to assuage her anxiety by calling and by being nervous myself, which is ridiculous, okay? So I grew up thinking I do not want to be an anxious person, Of course, my mother said to me, just wait until you have kids, then you'll understand me. Yeah. So I didn't have kids. But think about it, Is anxiety an expression of care and affection and love? No, it's not. Okay. Having a peaceful mind, giving people some space, trusting them that they can manage their own lives. That is much more harmonious. That is a much better indication of care and affection for other people. Okay. So now we see what's lying behind the anxiety. Yeah, the thing of it's a sign of my love and affection, and it's what I need to do to be prepared for the situation. So both of those are false. Then, how do we get involved in anxiety? We just start making up stories. When you went to school and you had to do creative writing, I don't know about you, but I used to sit there and nothing really much came to mind. But when it was time to get anxious, boy, we could make up all sorts of stories. Yeah. And like I said, they all star yo. Yeah. And the stories are based on projections, mind reading, assumptions, okay, all sorts of things that are not true and that have not happened, yet we imagine them and think that's the fact of the situation. Okay, so in talking about how to undo this, we need to kind of sit down and think a little bit to ourselves, Okay, anxiety doesn't prepare me. Anxiety is not a show of affection. And then take the things that each one of them that you start projecting and take it and say, is that happening? Is that happening now? Okay. I get COVID, and by this afternoon, I'm in the ICU in the hospital, on a ventilator. Yeah. Is that happening now? No. I'm sitting in my home, looking around, healthy, safe. Yeah. What I'm imagining is not happening now. Could it happen in the future? Possible. Is it likely to happen in the future? Well, if I'm vaccinated, I have a booster, I wear a mask, I don't go out to big crowds. Actually, highly unlikely, that it'll happen. Maybe on a fluke chance, but I'm doing everything to protect myself, so unlikely. If by there is that fluke chance and I do get COVID, is there absolutely no alternative but to die by the next day? No, yeah, because I'm vaccinated, boosted. Even if I get it, they say it's going to be a mild case. Yeah. Even if I wind up in the hospital, my family will come. There's people who will take care of me. There's doctors and nurses. There's now medicine. Yeah. The in the States, the federal, no, the Food and Drug Administration approved a pill to treat COVID. So it's probably the same in Mexico and other Latin American countries. So yeah, there's some medicine to take. I'll rest. Yeah. So highly unlikely that I'm going to be dead by tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. There are resources, yeah, that can help me. Even if the 1 in a billion chances are that I die, does that mean that my kids are going to be out on the street by next week? And my parents are going to be out on the street with them too? My whole family is going to be begging in the street? That is even more unlikely. Yeah. The family will come together. My siblings can help my kids. They can help our parents. Everybody will come together. They'll help. The neighbors will help. There is help from the government. This is not something that anybody is going to have to deal with alone. Yeah, there is help in our neighborhood. Yeah. And actually, if I'm able to keep myself calm, my calm mind will help me recover. Yeah, because there's all sorts of medical research that if you're anxious, if you're angry, that impedes recovery. If you're calm, and especially if you have a spiritual practice and you relax into your spiritual practice, your body is going to heal much easier. And your mind will be calmer and more peaceful. Okay. So all these things that I'm fabricating, let's put down because, yeah, they are not reality that are happening now. And this catastrophic scene that I am imagining is highly unlikely to happen. And if it does, there are resources. Okay. And so then you remember you're still sitting there in your home. Yeah. And your kids are there and they're playing. Your parents are coming over for dinner and they're fine. And you just sit there and, you've done this mental examination and you say, okay, none of that is happening now. And I want to enjoy the present moment with my kids, with my parents, with my spiritual practice. I want to enjoy that now and relax and make my life beneficial for others by reaching out and helping others who are adversely affected by COVID. Okay, so you change the situation. Instead of the horror story about me, you make it a story of where I can actually give something to other people who are in need of help at this moment. And then that makes your mind happy. And, because when we help others, we do feel happy, much happier than when we work ourselves up into some distraught, fearful situation. Okay, but we have to work at this because our habit of getting anxious, of panicking, of worrying, of getting fearful, we have a very strong habit in that direction. So to overcome that, we can't just say, oh, I shouldn't be like that. Yeah, we have to really sit down and again go through, what I just described in our own minds, to again and again see that the anxiety is not necessary, it's not helpful, it doesn't help me, and it doesn't show love towards other people. In fact, it annoys them. Yeah. So you have to go over it again and again, and then create a new image for yourself, which is an image of, if things happen in your community or in your family, that you can be of service and you can be helpful to others. And you're so much more helpful when you're calm than when you're all worked up. Okay? So you can make up many other examples of for yourself. And I want to tell you another story of my anxiety, which I am doing much better with. But how anxiety can sometimes lead to anger, which can lead to quarreling with the people you care the most about. Okay, so you see this kind of thing happening in families all the time. Yeah, one person getting anxious about what another person's doing, and the other person, getting mad, leave me alone, stop laying trips on me, stop bossing me around, stop telling me what to do. And then the first person saying, but I'm just trying to help you, and the other person saying, no, you're not, you're just anxious, be quiet and leave me alone. And then, okay, I'm sure you know the script. Okay, so my example, my story isn't a family situation, but it was with a good friend. And my friend he had a car that was borrowed from another friend of, our other friend had gone to India, had loaned his car to my friend, okay? And it was a very good car. It was a Volvo. There was just one problem, that the hood didn't stay hooked down. So it was, he had to chain it down. But otherwise, the car was in good condition. So my friend worked about 3 hours away from where I lived. And he was going to come up. And, it was like, I'll be there, I forget what time. Let's say it's 5 o'clock. He said, I'll be there by 5. Okay, so I'm ready, expecting. He's not coming. He's not there. 5:15, he's not there. Well, there must have been traffic. 5:30, he's still not there. Oh, maybe there was an accident on the highway. 6 o'clock, he's an hour late. What's the story? 6:30, he's not there. What happened? I'm not going to be like my mother. I am not calling the police. Wonder what happened to him. Okay, so sit down, read a book. Yeah, I think he came maybe around 7 o'clock. These were in the days, this was a long time ago, so nobody had cell phones in these days. So there's no way he was going to call me. Finally, he arrives 2 hours late. Yeah. I was anxious, like what happened? He walks in the door. Hi, what happened? Oh, I was driving on the highway and the hood flew up. What? You were driving on the highway and the hood flew up? Didn't you use that chain to secure it before you got on the highway. And he said, he had some reason, he forgot or something. So you're driving 65 miles an hour and the hood flew up in front of your windshield? Yes. And, I had to pull off on the side of the road. And I'm going, we know, I got really mad at this point. I said, our other friend told us that this happens, that you've got to secure it. Why can't you remember to secure it? This is outrageous, and couldn't you at least, find one of those things and found some way to call and say you were late? And this is, I was furious, okay? So obviously the evening did not go very well, okay? There was not a very nice ambience between the two of us. And, why? Well, I had gotten anxious, and then my anxiety made me get mad, and then I started accusing him. And of course, once, like, okay, you forgot to chain down the hood. And last week you forgot to do this. And the week before you could, okay, because it was somebody, he was also a colleague, so I was working with him a lot. And, for what? For what? Yeah. Well, if I hadn't got anxious, then I may never, what happened if he didn't arrive at 7 o'clock? What happened if he never turned up? I needed to be anxious so that I would know what to do if something actually did happen to him. Ridiculous way of thinking, totally ridiculous. Yeah, and it caused a quarrel. So better just, reality is what reality is right now, here in the moment. Why get upset about something that hasn't happened yet? Yeah. Because that's basically what anxiety is. Yeah. So keep going back, looking and take out situations from the past where you got anxious and go through these steps of checking why the anxiety was not necessary, the harmful effects of the anxiety. And then, at the end, as you're reflecting on this, come back to just sitting there and enjoying what is happening right now. Enjoy the peace, enjoy the safety. Yeah. And know that you have a kind heart and that you can help others. If you wonder how to come back to a peaceful mind instead of getting angry, instead of getting anxious and then getting angry or whatever, it's by practicing what I was talking about, asking yourself if there's any benefits to anxiety, and seeing that there's none. And especially, I think it's very helpful to take out situations in the past where you got anxious, a real life situation. Yeah, because that helps. And then dissecting it. And also, not only seeing the disadvantages of it, but go step by step and watch how your mind is projecting, watch how your mind is misinterpreting the situation and making it into this horrific thing. And through all the projections that you're putting on it, watch how, after you've created this, horrific story, how you then get anxious, how the anxiety leads to anger or whatever. Okay, so that's the way. Go through this process. Also, another tip, because sometimes we're so habituated to being anxious that we don't even notice it. So another thing is to develop an awareness of your body. Yeah. When you start to feel anxious, yeah, watch what is going on in your body, because that can give you uh, signals ahead of time to let you know you're becoming anxious. Okay, so let's, what are some signals that you can get when you're beginning to become anxious, if you're mindful of your body? Okay, you'll notice that you're getting tight. Yeah, your muscles get tight, don't they? Yeah, sometimes it's your jaw. Yeah, as if this tight jaw is going to fight off the horrible thing you're anxious about. Yeah, your muscles get tight. When when the anxiety starts to go into worry and fear, your stomach gets tight. Okay, you may get a headache. Yeah, or you may even feel faint. People are going to have different physiological reactions. But, watch and be aware of what's going on in your body when anxiety starts coming up. Yeah. Watch what's going on in your mind when anxiety starts. Because if you can catch the anxiety when it's small, you can remember that it has nothing to do with reality and, like, say, I'm putting it down. Okay. Once the anxiety is bigger, it's much more difficult. Okay. But when it's still small, if you recognize it, you can, come sit down. It's very good to come back to your breath. At the beginning, when you're anxious, your breathing pattern changes. Sometimes it's faster and it's shallower. When we're fearful, our breathing changes. Yeah. Even before it gets to fear, when it's just anxiety, there's tightness. We don't breathe from our belly, we're breathing from our upper chest. So our breath is shorter, it's quicker, it's tenser. Yeah. So if you notice that happening, sit down and then deliberately, but very gradually and very slowly, just start to make your breath a little bit longer. Okay. So you're not trying to change your breathing pattern like this, from going to, very long, slow breaths, because you can't change it that quickly. But try just to slow it down a little bit, and then gradually over time, remember that your belly needs to go out when you inhale. So really try and bring the breath down here to your belly. Yeah. And if you do that breathing that is slower and is deeper automatically helps your mind calm down. Okay. Because the breath and the mind affect each other. Yeah? So that's another thing to do. To sit down and just breathe, but not the short, anxious breaths from up here, but transition slowly, gradually to deeper breaths from your belly. You might also wonder if there is a role for planning that would help you avoid getting anxious. So, yes, first, if you have to sit and really think, is the situation likely to happen? If there is some likelihood for a situation to happen, yeah. For example, we all know that sometime or another in our lives, we're going to get old and we won't be able to work if you live that long, yeah? We know that sometime in our life we're going to get sick, yeah? Because that's the nature of our lives, yeah? So, or somebody we know will get sick, somebody we know will get old. So we know that kind of thing, it will happen sometime or another in our lives. So we can think of, okay, when that happens, what do I do? Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why we save money, because we may need it for that rainy day when we get old or we get sick. So having some savings is good. So then, instead of going out and spending a lot of money, uh, on frivolous things, you become more mindful of how you spend money, and you make sure that you have a nest egg and you save some money so that, if somebody gets sick when, you're too old to work, that there's some savings. Yeah. So you make a plan because that's something that is likely to happen. Or, well, for sure it's going to happen if you live that long. Okay. So it also, if it's a realistic situation that actually could happen, and you have a plan for it, then uh, you don't need to become so anxious. Another example is at the Abbey. Uh, we live in the midst of forest. So in the summer, it can get very hot here, like this last summer. We had really hot temperatures. And in recent years, there have been many forest fires in the area. So what we've done, we're a community of people, is we have a whole plan for if there is a fire and, what we do. So there's a plan if there's the fire far away and we may have to evacuate, we start getting ready for evacuation. We know where the important papers are in the Abbey. Um, we store things also somewhere else with friends in case there's a fire here. Uh, we have things arranged. Yeah. Then we know that if the fire's coming closer and there's a warning by the county that we may have to evacuate, we pack our bags, and not a big bag, a small bag, and then we make sure that there's cell phones because there will be several cars. We make sure that the keys to the cars are in a place where everybody knows where they are, that the cell phones are in the car, that people's bags are packed, so that then when if it comes that we have to evacuate, everybody has their toothpaste and a change of clothes and their important papers or whatever. We know who's going in what car. We have cell phones. And, we don't need to get all tense about it. It's planned out already what we'll do. Okay. So having plans for those kind of circumstances is quite good. Yeah. We also live in an area where when the electricity can go out, sometimes during snowstorms, more during wind, when the wind is really blowing hard. So we've made sure that in all the major rooms, there are lanterns, electric lanterns. They are recharged every month. Yeah. And they're in every room. We have plans laid out. We have extra heaters and so on, we have, well, the big plan is we have generators, yeah, that can, produce some electricity. If our electricity goes out, they won't light up and heat everything, but the important rooms and the important places, so that if it's in the middle of winter, people are not going to freeze. Okay, so these kinds of things, you make plans to deal with things like that, so that you aren't caught off guard. Another way to prepare for things that may happen is to learn first aid. So, for example, in our community, one of our nuns every year has a first aid class, and she reviews with us all the steps for if somebody is injured and bleeding, if they fall down, if they have a heart attack, if they have a stroke. So if everybody knows some first aid, then when a situation happens, we know somebody around will know what to do. Yeah, first thing is you call 911 emergency. So somebody around knows what to do. Yeah, and that you know what to do if somebody around you, is ill or injured. So that's very helpful to do. Also, I think in emergency situations, I found that I I have an idea of what I can do and what I can't do. Okay, so uh, there are some things that I can do to physically help the person in an emergency, and there are other things that I cannot do. For example, if I'm on the site of a car crash, and somebody's stuck in a car, I don't have the tools or the knowledge to go extract them from the car. We have to wait for, the emergency services to come. But what I can do is I can make prayers. If I'm close to the person, uh, you know, I can say things to them that will help them relax their mind. So there are ways that I can help, and then there are ways that I can't help. But if I know which way I can help and which way I can't, then I won't get all nervous if there's an emergency. I'll do what I can do and hope there's other people around who can do the other things that I can't do. Okay, so with this, we'll close the talk. And I thank you all very much.